it was the true wild, wild west. I mean, like just getting to get your money online was challenging. I was in college. Like I didn't have online banking. Okay. So like I couldn't, there was no online, or at least maybe it existed, but I didn't have it. So like I had to actually like go into the bank, convince them that I was actually associated with this like online wallet, which is Neteller. People probably know what that is. Maybe they don't. I don't even know if it exists anymore, but and like, that was just to get your money online, because like I didn't have a credit card or like it didn't work or something. And like, so that's just like step one, like just getting there was hard. There was no information whatsoever. So, forget about solvers or software. It was like just knowing like the hand rankings and like the equities. There's like shitty sites that you could look up, like what hands would win versus others. And like, that was like pretty, like you're doing pretty well if you like knew about that, and there was no social media. Okay. No YouTube, nothing like that. So it's like, okay, everybody's just going to sign up for this thing that like, we all know we're doing this because we saw poker on ESPN, and like, we all are like, oh shit. Like I want to be like the next, whoever we saw on ESPN. It's like this new video game almost that like, think back to like old school video games when like you didn't have anything other than like, you just plugged it in and you turned it on and you tried to figure it out. Like there was nothing else. And that's kind of the environment. And it was super, the upshot is that there were just tons of people that had no clue, but like you had to really figure out how to, what games to play. What were the rules of the games? Like a sit and go was like a totally new thing that like nobody had ever heard of outside of online poker, or at least I certainly hadn't heard of it. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I started playing $5 sit and goes heads up because I just liked the action. And then over the course of like probably 2 years, like 2 years later, I was playing like 50, 100, 10K no limit heads up. And like, that was a wild ride, I mean, like, and like the variance wasn't even that bad because like the skill gap was just so wide between like someone like me who was at the top and then like the average player that like, it wasn't even that stressful. It was just like a ride up, it was awesome. The initial idea was just myself and my business partner, Andrew Wiggins, and a couple of other people that we were just like friend buddies with, putting out videos, like 3 or 4 guys, and like what it became was, dozens of people creating content. And I'm not saying there wasn't thought that was put into it, but like this was before like, YouTube was just getting started when we started Card Runners. Like it was literally like within like a few months of each other. So like, this wasn't something where we had some grand vision. It was like college kids that I thought I would get a job after I graduated college. So I wanted to, have something to fall back on. Like, like I'd be like, hey, I wasn't just playing poker online. I was doing a business, and like that's real. Like, cause at the time people didn't respect online poker. Like nowadays, not everyone likes it, but like people at least can understand there are people that are very successful and do well at it. And it takes skill, and that wasn't really the case.
What would you say to people that say that with Establish the Run and Card Runners before, maybe even Hold'em Manager to some extent here, that you're ruining the games for people and you're making everyone's life worse and you're making the games tougher and now they can't make money and you're just destroying this for these people? What would you say to those people?
I would say that Doug Polk's doing that better than I am. So he's the guy to go after.
Very nice. Nicely sidestepped there. I like it.
No, but it's something I've thought a lot about. And I'm actually curious what you think about this. If, like I said, Card Runners didn't ever exist, and they're never, because there's not like, if you go across industries, there's not like a Card Runners or an upswing of every single industry, where like a really, really reliable premium source of information that you just know is, they're actually really trying to be as good as they can at educating you. It's not like just bullshit, really. Do you think that would have happened in poker anyway, the same way that it did? And I think that it would have, because there was just a market opportunity and eventually that people go after it. But then the question is, if that's true, why doesn't the same thing exist for like all forms of gambling, all trading, all forms of a lot of other activities? And I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I guess there's kind of 2 parts here. The first part is sort of the ethics of it, and the second part is why with poker specifically. And so the ethics side is interesting and complicated. And one thing I don't like is when training sites owners try and say, guys, this is actually good for you because now people move up in stakes and now you're going to have other people that might not have been in your games, yada, yada. And that stuff can happen. That definitely can be a small part of it. But the reality is when you create a training site and you have thousands of members, the average player is going to become more knowledgeable. They're going to learn from better players. The games get tougher. So there's no doubt about it. It has a slightly negative impact on the average player playing in those games. But it does have a very positive impact on the people that are taking the course and trying to improve their game. So you are making the game worse for everyone, and while making it much better for the people that are your members by providing them value. And that's really the point, I think, of businesses just in general, is to legally provide value to your customers. And yes, that's going to be at the expense of the other people in the market, but lots of other markets operate in the same way where, let's just say that you're trying to become a professional athlete and there's some new way to train that makes you much stronger that people don't know about. Well, yeah, that's worse for everyone else that doesn't do it, but it's good for the people that use that source, assuming that it's legal. There's so many other examples here that exist like this in the market. So the reality is that in a capitalistic society, as long as it's within the rules that we've established, companies will exist to provide value to people. And we're just another company that does that. So that would be my kind of ethics question or response there. And then as for why poker specifically, well, what's interesting with poker is that in a lot of these industries, let's say, for example, backgammon, which I don't know very much about, but backgammon doesn't have a thriving low to mid stakes ecosystem, to my knowledge, at least not online, not in the same way. So let's just say you're the best backgammon player in the world. I don't know. Gus Hansen won a lot of money in backgammon, supposedly. You're not going to go, hey guys, I'm Gus Hansen. What's up? We're going to make some videos on how to play backgammon. This is how you beat the Saudis out of 160 million in backgammon. You're not getting that video. Doesn't make sense. No one's going to buy it. And it's too much money that he gives up by doing that. So there is an interesting sort of incentive with poker specifically where, and DFS is very similar, where you have primarily low to mid stakes games that are running. And so higher stakes people can actually make good money teaching because there's enough demand, and then enough people can actually purchase that product and use that to gain value, capture value themselves. So I think that things like those two make the most sense. And then some other things you'd never see, for example, like chess. There's no gambling in chess. So there's not going to be this secondary market. I'm sure that there are training sites for chess in some capacity, I guess, but it's not the same because it's not B2B, it's B2C. When you're a poker player or DFS player, anything like that, you are treating these purchases of subscriptions as a business. I'm a business. My business is to make money doing X thing. This purchase makes me better at X thing. I make more money. My business makes more money. Whereas if you're doing something as a hobby or for fun, you're just simply never going to see that same kind of thing. What other gambling games do you have in mind when you said that?
Sports betting. And there are tools and stuff that are, I would say, from what I know, decent, but it's few and far between. It's mostly just scammy stuff. I'm trying to think of other gambling games specifically.
Well, with sports betting specifically, it's a weird one because if you're able to make money sports betting, there's so much volume available. You can make so much money that it doesn't make sense to give away your formula because its effectiveness gets diluted as more people have access to it. And so the amount of money you can make just simply getting the bets down is just tremendously more than you would get doing another approach, right?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But sports betting also becomes a game of how do you actually get bets? Like once you're good enough to win, the harder part is like, how do you get action? And like, so there is some maybe dynamic for us, but it's not, it would make no sense to like do a mass subscription for, a low cost to give people sports betting information because it's just the information would just be useless instantly and you wouldn't get enough people paying for it.
What are your thoughts on online poker as it is today? And do you think that there is a longevity there or should players be concerned with the games they're playing and being fair and the prevalence of bots and all of those types of things?
I think you should always be concerned. Like is the short answer that I think that like the technology is obviously only going to get better and like people are going to get, computers are going to get better. That's just going to happen. But, I think there is just like an underlying demand to play poker. And like, I don't really see that going away, especially live poker. And I think the $1 million question is just regulation in the US. I mean, the road is paved for poker to be regulated. It's already legal in a few states. And there's, like the Wire Act issues are kind of behind us from what I can tell. I think that, and with Adelson, not being around anymore, he was like a huge force in fighting against any sort of online gambling expansion. And I feel like there's a chance that what we're seeing with sports betting right now, where every freaking ad on TV is for sports betting, if you live in a state that has it, legal sports betting. I'm not saying poker will be as impactful as that, but once the marketing dollars get behind it and people and the common man feels like, hey, I can get a fair game. You know, I'm already betting sports on these sites. There's a big prize pool. All this stuff comes back. And this is a US centric view to it. Obviously there's a lot more than that out there, but I do think there's actually some room for optimism overall. I was always like so bearish on like poker after Black Friday, and maybe we'll go into more, you know, my getting out of poker and stuff, but like, I just didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel for poker. And like, I think there's a lot of trends going against poker too. I mean, like it is a hard game to really compete in and to like get to be competitive, especially online. If you're playing live in a soft game, like anybody can have a good time. But like, I just think that dynamic is always going to be there. And I think that's going to be challenging, even with like an influx of rec players and, you know, people feeling comfortable about not getting robbed, all that stuff. There's still going to be thousands of really sophisticated players that are going to be like chomping at the bit to you know, play as many tables as they can to capitalize. So I'm trying to temper. I don't think it's going to be this thing where like anybody can go back and just print money if they know what they're doing. But I do think it's like there'll be maybe a little bit of a middle ground from where it is right now.